I want to bring in Kevin Green. He's joining us for a look back at a busy week in cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. Kevin, welcome. It seemed like it kind of got swept under the rug or overshadowed by some of the other focal points for investors and traders. But there was a big ruling this week, the D.C. court pushing back on the SEC and ultimately opening up the door for potential ETFs to emerge.
Yes, we are seeing this back and forth, these high and lows when it comes to emotions in the crypto market here. As you talked about, the Washington court actually ruled against the SEC's rejection of Grayscale trying to convert their trust into an ETF here. So they have to go back and potentially be able to reassess their approval or rejection here. And we also actually saw some really good news when it came to the overall SEC trying to, well, really the crypto market really trying to pressure the SEC, not only having that court ruling, but also having some very big proponents for having these ETFs really pushing the scale here. Now, unfortunately, it does look like yesterday the SEC did punt the approval for a Bitcoin or spot Bitcoin ETF here yesterday, which drew Bitcoin to the downside. And this is actually impacting around 7 different applications, including one from BlackRock and another from Van Eck. And so this right now is going to come down to a head here soon, and the market is actually expecting to see some form of a decision by the SEC by mid-October, and that could be a little bit of a tailwind when it comes to the bulls here. If they do provide that approval, it sounds like, and it looks like they'll have to potentially approve all of these applications, and that could open up the market to new funding from investors that would like to get into Bitcoin trading or even crypto trading, but may not want to deal with having their own wallets, either a virtual wallet or even having a cold storage type of wallet as well. And we are seeing a lot of those that are impacted in the crypto market, like Coinbase and others, really seeing a lot of this volatility here, Ben. But we are seeing some pressure to the downside here today. From a technical standpoint, we are very close to breaking a head and shoulders pattern to the downside here. I would say it's around $25,000 here. It's around that 200-day moving average, which is around 24,000 and some change. But if we do see that break to the downside here, that could create a little bit more velocity for losses here when it comes to crypto. And I was actually just doing a little bit of a Twitter Spaces yesterday, or X Spaces, with some crypto advocates, and they are actually feeling a little bit down, if you will, when it comes to crypto, because they believe that not only the regulatory headwinds has really pressured all crypto assets, but they also believe that there's not a lot of leadership within this space, and it's been tainted by some of the legal issues that we've seen from FTX and from others over the last year and a half.
Okay, Kevin, I like that in terms of the breakdown as far as the fundamentals, and I would argue in some ways very similar to what we saw in terms of the jobs report today. A strong rally in reaction to the news, right? Bitcoin rallied on the SEC news, or the pushback against the SEC, I guess you could argue, but follow-through has been somewhat limited. Earlier today, we were talking with Scott Bauer on the Future Show about how that non-farms payrolls number, a best-case scenario, but who's left to buy right now, right? If the best-case scenario is played out, we're not continuing to rally, one would argue that that best-case scenario has been priced in. Here I can see a similar pattern where, I mean, everybody's been talking about this ETF approval and how this was going to bring legitimacy, and we did rally back up to 28.5, but look how we've now taken out August lows here to begin the month of September. I mean, this is not necessarily what the bulls wanted to see. Mark Chandler on the Future Show joins us frequently from Chesapeake Capital, and he talks about, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking Jerry Parker joining us on the Future Show, one of the original turtle traders who I'm sure you're well aware of, Kevin, and he always talks about how when the fundamentals don't add up to what you're seeing in terms of price, he talks about how oftentimes you got to favor the price side of things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ben, when we talk about an emerging market like crypto, or any other type of market for that matter, in history, you need to also have a utility. And I think that's one of the things that has been lacking when it comes to the crypto space. It has a lot of interest. It has a lot of players that want to trade it. And there's some need for hedging mechanisms that are out there, which makes a market. But what also makes a market is utility. And so I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of these advocates, as of late, have gotten a little bit down on themselves, because there's a lot of projects that are really great when it comes to the technology, technology, a lot of input, especially from the open source community. But at the end of the day, it fits a small niche and it doesn't really expand the application when it comes to the regular consumer like yourself or myself here. What I am looking at, though, one of the spikes to the upside when we did have that SEC announcement, or the ability, or not the SEC announcement, the Washington court case announcement, we saw a huge up candle as well as some pretty large volume. Today, it's going to be very interesting is at the close. If we actually do see some light volume a little bit below the 5-day average, which is what I usually track, that could also indicate that maybe sellers are getting a little exhausted. And that's why I think the price point at itself at 25,000, moving below that on strong volume would then bring additional sellers to the marketplace. So we're kind of in limbo, but you really do not want to break that head and shoulders pattern that's been in play right now since around February of this year. And that's something that I think a lot of technical traders are keeping their eye on, and a lot of these fundamental traders are going to start scratching their head if they start seeing that breakdown and this volume going up and asking themselves, well, why is no one buying? From a technical standpoint, if you do break that, that is a huge signal that you and I and everybody else really focuses on when it comes to price momentum.
Absolutely. I'm looking at this 25,000 level. It does appear to be a bit of a line in the sand here. We'll keep an eye on it next week. Kevin, appreciate you joining us.